Hi, welcome to Ketobiography. I'm your host, Robyn Dobbins. Today we have a very special guest. I am joined by the Chief of Staff to the President. She'll share more on that later. My guest built her career as an entrepreneur, a functional fitness pioneer. Now, her lifelong passion for helping people feel better from the inside out has led her to the Baszucki Group. I met her at the Menlo Park screening of the cholesterol code and later got to share great brisket and even better conversation with her at the Austin screening. Recently, I've read her memoir while traveling. This led to an interest in her story and the program she built at her studio, Alkalign. Please welcome Erin Paruszewski to Ketobiography. Hello and welcome. It's so great to see you again.
Hi, great to see you.
Well, I do have to say I just read your book while I was on the plane. I was up in the air somewhere and I was reading your book and it kept me captivated for the whole trip. So that's a good thing. I wrote on my ex the amount of time she said like holistic. I should have counted it because you're talking about fitness in this book, but you're talking about like holistic and these like wellness. Like it sounds like buzzwords, but I know because I've met you that it's not a buzzword. Like this is truly how you feel and that there's a different way. So I definitely want to pick your brain about that. But before we get started, can you just share like who you are and how you got into this space?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very impressed you could pronounce Paruszewski. So way to go. Many have tried, very few have pulled it off.
Well, I will admit that you do have it written phonetically on the Alkalign website, and I was like, score, I'm writing that down. So I have it written phonetically here, but I did grow up in a Polish family, so we have some strange last names in my family too. So I probably, given the opportunity to just sound it out myself, would have done some more shush in it than you actually have. So I'm glad you had it written that way.
That's funny because it's my married name, but I had a lot of Polish friends in high school, so I think it was my destiny. I was always really good with the Polish names too. So, yeah, as you said, I'm Erin. I have kind of had a career that has taken twists and turns and ended up, I think, right where it needs to be with zero plan. You know, they say you are where you are meant to be, but life is not a linear path. So, yeah, I've been in the, I guess, health and wellness space as an entrepreneur for 16 plus years, but I've always been interested in health. I, way back when, was a runner, and I didn't really know anything about nutrition. I knew about fitness, but more from like the it burns calories standpoint and less of, it was good for you in any way. And so I think my first inkling that I wanted a certain lifestyle was when I moved to San Francisco. I grew up on the East Coast. I went to school on the East Coast, and I was just drawn to the West Coast. And I lived out in San Francisco for a summer before I graduated, and people were out hiking and running and doing all sorts of outdoorsy stuff. And of course, the weather is lovely, so you can do that year round. And I just wanted that lifestyle. And so I came out here to San Francisco as an investment banker originally, and left that crazy West Coast hours. I was in the office at 4 a.m. and working till 10 p.m. and it just wasn't good for my holistic health, as you mentioned. So it's not good for my mental health either. So I left and went to work at a behavioral health company, and that was my first kind of accidental step into my real passion. And so I worked for United Behavioral Health and worked in finance, and then worked in as a project manager and worked in product development, and learned about this thing called comorbidities. And we were talking about depression and anxiety and mental health combined with physical health. The top 10 or 12 chronic diseases in the US, and we were building programs and doing all these things to try to help people. And I just felt like, I don't know if I'm helping anybody. I just feel like a cog in a corporate wheel, and I was kind of, sitting at a desk all day. I was a little bit soul sucking. So I decided to leave and start my own company, and that had its own path, which we can talk about. But I really fell in love with just helping people. Not like it extended beyond the fitness. Fitness, the way I learned it, was so one-dimensional. And as I worked with people over the years, thousands and thousands of people, I just realized there's so much more to this, and this is really part of a lifestyle. And so in 2015, I started a company called Alkalign, and my goal was really to change the way people think about fitness as not something you have to do, but something you get to do, and not something that should hurt or make you feel bad, or should feel like maybe the junior high gym teacher that made a comment to you, it made you feel bad for the rest of your life, or change your relationship to movement. And I just wanted to make it something that felt good for people. And that was all going great until this thing COVID happened. Because I live in California, we were very, very conservative with COVID laws, and I'm a rule follower. So I followed all the rules and shut down and stayed closed and had all the, vaccine requirements and mask requirements. And we had the floor taped out. And at one point, I think when we reopened, we were allowed to have 4 people in there at once, compared to what was originally, 26 people in a class. So needless to say, that changed everything. But it didn't change, my passion for helping people. And so by some chance, I found my way to Baszucki Group, and now I get to do what I love doing in a just different context. So, yeah.
So that's like the professional journey, but all the while you were going through your own personal journey with kind of health and how you thought about health. And then, of course, you said earlier that you didn't really know anything about nutrition, but you knew about fitness. So how does the nutrition component enter?
Well, I had a lot of my own gut issues from childhood. I guess the earliest I remember is in my teens, having lots of just gut issues and a lot of pain, and not realizing. Well, I mean, to be honest, I went through the whole medical system. I went through, I guess it started in maybe early college, end of high school, early college. I finally went through the whole, battery of testing, and they do an upper GI and a lower GI and a barium enema, and they test you for parasites and all these things. And just despite having my appendix removed, having a laparoscopic exploratory surgery that was relatively inconclusive, they could never really find anything. And at that time, I grew up in the fat-free era, so I was eating 100% carbs, bagels, rice cakes, Yoplait yogurt, Snackwells, things like that, froyo.
If it was in a green box, you were eating it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll eat the whole thing because it was fat-free. And I also was drinking a ton of skim milk. We did grow up drinking milk at dinner. That's the only thing I ever drank. We weren't like a soda house or anything like that. And I just had terrible pain all the time. So come to find out, I'm, lactose intolerant, and my body doesn't like, lots of starchy stuff. So it really was just happenstance. When I moved to California, I remember going to a kinesiologist / chiropractor / somebody who didn't take insurance, and I had to pay $500 out of pocket, which was it's still a lot of money, but back then it was so much money. And at the end of the appointment, she told me to not eat white carbs. And I was like, well, what do you want me to starve? Like, what else is there? Like, I have no idea what. And I was running marathons and training for a Century 100-mile bike ride and doing triathlons, and just, I didn't know, there was no discussion of even sweet potatoes as an alternative, or this thing called quinoa, which I didn't learn about for a long time after. There was no discussion about any sort of alternative fuel. She said, just don't eat anything white for 2 weeks and don't come back until you've accomplished that. And I never went back. Yeah. So from there, it was just a very slow. It was not. I always say it was not. It was not a light switch. It was a dimmer. It was just a very slow process of uncovering more information about how to fuel my body. And there wasn't Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. I mean, I guess maybe the internet stuff was on the scene, but it just,
You had to check MySpace for it.
yeah, there just wasn't access to information. Like now I could put it into, Claude and it would give me an entire, life plan of what I should eat and how long I'm going to live. But yeah, I just didn't, it was purely, I was responding to just acute pain and discomfort and just not even realizing like I didn't know I could feel any better, right? I'd always felt like that. And so, yeah, I remember the first thing I did was I kind of got this idea of like, oh, I'm going to start reading ingredients and see what's in things. And I love peanut butter and I would eat a ton of peanut butter. I didn't realize there was high fructose corn syrup in peanut butter. So the first switch I made was to peanut butter that just had peanuts and salt, right? It was like the first thing. And so I've been health coaching people for a long time, and I think it's very intimidating to change behaviors and habits. And I always say, like, just start with one thing. And I give the peanut butter example. Just start with one thing. Ideally, something that you consume often and in high quantities. That would be you're gonna get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of effort. But yeah, I was just a very slow process of searching for things that would make me feel better. And it was hard because I have a total sweet tooth. I think because I grew up in that fat-free era and ate a ton of sugar and not a lot of, satiating stuff. I'm just conditioned to eat. I do. I have a sweet tooth. And so those habits were hard to break. But over time, I mean, I went through it I got multiple certifications in nutrition and coaching and trying to understand just how all the pieces work together. Yeah. And I would say I'm still a work in progress. I'm still learning. Like I told you right before we hit record that I'm now trying to eat my breakfast before I have any coffee in the morning. That's a new experiment, right? It's just, I don't know. That's what's fun about life. You're always learning something new.
I like that too. I always say I'm always a work in progress because if we perfected it all, then what would be the point? Is kind of how I look at it. So
Yeah,
we always have to have something to work for, or work toward. And well, tell me about that. Why did you choose to start eating breakfast especially before coffee? But just did you go from not eating breakfast in the morning, or was it just always coffee first and then
I think I've always been a breakfast eater. I believe, it's the most important meal of the day. Mm-hmm. And I do think it kind of fuels energy. I think mine's just purely functional. I'm just busy and I'm kind of sometimes rushed getting out of the house. And sometimes I'll eat breakfast like when I get to the office or something. But I've been wearing my CGM, which I've worn a CGM on and off for many, many years. And I'm always, I don't wear it constantly, but I'll wear it. And that's a continuous glucose monitor. I'm sure your audience, what your listeners are well aware of what that is. But I am really trying to notice how food and intake and what I eat and when I eat is impacting my blood sugar. I tend to run pretty high on my blood sugar, like borderline pre-diabetic, despite now after many years eating really well and exercising and sleeping and managing stress and doing all the things you're supposed to do. I don't know if it's a change in hormones or what's going on, but I'm wondering if I eat early, kind of front load my eating before I have something like coffee. It just also reminds me to, I'm not going to forget the coffee, but I could forget to eat breakfast. So I figure if I eat breakfast first, then it just, I don't know, coats my stomach. We'll see. I'll report back.
Report back. Yeah, it reminds you to eat. So does that mean that you then changed how you eat in the evening? Like, do you just eat a smaller meal or just add it on?
Yeah, it kind of depends. No, it's not intentional. Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I fuel enough my goal is to gain a couple pounds of muscle. So I'm trying to fuel for that. But yeah, I'm trying not to get too, I don't, count calories or do anything like that. I'm just trying to make sure I get enough of the good stuff so then I won't crave the other stuff. I do find if I underfuel throughout the day, then I start to, that sweet tooth kicks in at night. And so I'm trying to see if I can avoid that.
Yeah, that's a good call. So what is the good stuff to you? You said that you eat the good stuff.
Oh, I like eggs and bacon and avocado. And sometimes I make a chia pudding with coconut milk, with, add flaxseed and coconut. Those are kind of like my breakfast go-tos. Last week I was really into savory breakfasts. So we had some leftover, like these beef skewers my daughter made. So I was tossing that into the eggs. I don't know, good, yummy stuff that's, I feel like is fueling me and gives me energy and that sort of thing.
So it's within the keto range. It's not, you're finally figured out what the white carbs are and how to eliminate them. You figured out that milk was tearing up your stomach. You talked before we turned this on about oat milk and that kind of that craze coming through. And so but I do like this concept. Like, I got to figure it out. I've got to do what's right for me. I don't have to follow someone's plan. I know that I'm nourishing myself, and that's what I get from you. And then again, I'm going to talk about that. I read the book. The book is called "It Doesn't Have to Hurt to Work," A Path to Freedom. And you do talk about that food journey a little bit, but it's not like that's not the theme. It's you have this fitness background. You were a marathon, a triathlete. Like, you did all this crazy cardio work, and then one day was like, maybe cardio is not the thing to do, which I think is a fascinating conversation because I believe especially women lead on cardio so heavily, and they're missing this kind of strength, functional fitness that you talk about. So can you tell me more about that transition in your life, and then what that looks like? I don't quite understand what you mean by functional fitness, except for like the brief tidbits that you mentioned in the book. So can you tell me more about all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I started as a cardio enthusiast by accident. To be honest, I got cut from field hockey in 7th grade, and so I had to find something else to do. And cross country didn't have any cuts, so that's what I went with. And I'm actually, as much as all the cardio beat up my body for those years, I'm grateful because it was cheap. It was free. In college, I just had sneakers and would put them on and run. And I definitely didn't have money to go to a gym or go to classes or invest in any equipment. So it worked out well when I did it. And I lived in San Francisco. That's what people did on the weekends. They trained for things. And so I think people, because I don't run anymore, people think I'm very anti-running, and that is not the case. I would say for me, I overdid it. I'm a type A Virgo who just is can be a little bit extreme in things. And so that was me. I would, work 100 hours in my banking job. And then in the few hours I had off, I would run 20 miles. Like, I probably should have been doing some restorative yoga or something to balance my body and my brain, but I wasn't. I was just on all the time. And so I don't want to, slam the running too much, but I did think that the way that I did it in its extreme quantities, without any sort of cross training, stretching, I thought all that stuff was a waste of time, was very hard on my body. And so as a result, I had a ton of injuries, and I had this really bad hip injury, and I was told I was going to need a hip replacement when I was like 24. And, because I'm a rule follower and all, I waited 6 years to stop running. So I totally empathize with people who have a really hard time shifting gears, because I identified as a runner. That was my identity. I ran marathons. I had times. I achieved things. I had goals. And without that, I was like, what am I going to do? And so again, it was not it was not a light switch. It was a dimmer. I just slowly over time started discovering other things. I started teaching group fitness classes. I joined a gym. I got recruited by the instructor at the gym to teach classes. So the first thing I taught was cycling, indoor cycling. And that was still cardio, but lower impact for my body. And then that instructor was teaching other sort of these, what call it functional movement, but looking back at it, I guess it was like a barefoot class, and it wasn't yoga, it wasn't Pilates, but it had planks and it had movement. It had like a little bit of choreography, but it wasn't a dance class. And so I kind of just got exposed to that, became a little bit of a gym rat, which was really odd for me because I was always just go off and, put on my shoes and run by myself, which is a very kind of individual type thing. I didn't want to be on anybody else's schedule. I had limited time. I wanted to do it when I wanted to do it. So the fact that I started hanging out at this gym was different. And then that instructor had a business of her own, and she didn't have a lot of, she was very good with the instruction, but not so good with the business side. So she asked me, she knew I had a business background, if I could help her create a training manual. I was like, yeah, sure. So I put all this information into a Word document and I formatted it, and she traded me for a Bosu ball, which I still have. Trade. So this is like my entry into like something other than cardio. And so again, it was over many, many years. That's why that was that 6-year period where I started just doing other stuff, and then slowly noticed like, oh my gosh, like my body doesn't hurt anymore. And I don't know, I guess after the birth of my first child, I ran through my entire first pregnancy, and I couldn't wait till I got that clearance after my C-section to go for a run. And then shortly after that, maybe it was just having the business and the baby, I just didn't have time to run anymore, and it just slowly faded out, and I replaced it with something else. And so when I look at now fitness, I look less about like how many calories in my burn. It was all about like how many calories can I burn, and then how many calories can I consume in exchange. It was like this constant math equation, which now we know that these trackers and things, like it's not accurate, like but I didn't know that. And I did wear a heart rate monitor way back, before smart fitness watches and all that kind of stuff. I had a good old, Garmin with a strap. I wore like a chest strap all the time. So my entry into functional fitness, I guess I just took a different approach I kind of took a step back and thought, this is not about just what I can do today. And I do think exercise feels good. And the worst form of torture for me would be able to not exercise my body. So it's not like it's not important for me day to day, but I just took a step back and thought, if I want to go the distance and I want to be able to travel and to move and to do things with my kids and my maybe future grandkids, I need to take a different approach. And so I don't know. I honestly don't know how it happened. It shifted from this like, now is now. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to burn my body out in the moment to get what I need out of it, to just this. I'm going to play the long game and see what happens. And it was an evolution over time, just noticing when I was doing slower movements and body weight things and I just felt so much better. And so that's where my company Alkalign came from, just that lived experience and just feeling better and realizing I didn't have to live with pain. So it's crazy that I had all this pain in my 20s and now I'm almost 48 and I haven't, knock on wood, like I haven't had any sort of pain for decades, so I think I'm moving in the right direction for sure. And then more recently, I incorporated like 3-4 years ago, I incorporated heavier weights, which is, if I could give advice to my younger self, it would have been to do that sooner, but I'm not going to beat myself up for what I didn't know. When you know better, you can do better. And so I feel like I had really good foundation from all the body weight training and had good form, and that's important to translate. But since I've started lifting heavier weights, it's like night and day. I feel so much stronger and feel just confident in whatever I'm going to do, and whether it's putting up my kids, 65-pound suitcase in the overhead compartment loaded with all her. I have 2 teen daughters, if I didn't mention that. I want to be able to do that. I want to be independent, and I also want to be able to help others. So I want to be the person who can put up that person's, like a stranger's offer to help a stranger put their suitcase in the overhead compartment, not the one that needs the help. So that's my whole mantra is like train for life. I used to always train for events, whether that was a marathon or a triathlon, or, oh yeah, I want to look good for my wedding, or, my college reunion. And now I'm like, I just want to train for the long haul.
I love that. This has been a theme that has come up in the conversations I've had on the show is that you don't know, like some people just don't know why they're doing the thing. Like everybody wants to have this why, and they'll look at me and they'll say, well, if I don't get the feedback that you get, then I can eat whatever I want or something like that. But I get this feedback, but I'm not looking at it for my mental health stuff. I'm looking at it for this long haul journey. And that's been something that comes up quite a bit in these conversations is you don't know what you're helping. And you may never know because the thing didn't happen. Whatever it was didn't happen. And you have to prepare for it, even though you don't have a carrot to chase. So you don't have that goal. The goal is a much broader scope thing that you can't quite define. And that's exactly what I'm getting from what you're calling functional fitness. And that is this like prepare for life thing. So what are those movements? When I'm assuming it's like being able to stand from a seated position or get up off the floor or that kind of stuff. Is that what happens in the gym? How do you practice functional fitness?
Yeah, that's a good question. So by definition, there are 7 functional movements. So it's squatting, hinging, lunging, pushing, pulling, rotating, and walking. And the theory is if you can do all of those things independently and in combination with each other, you can do all the things in life that you want to be able to do. So it's not just, and when I teach classes or I train my own body, it's not just, you wouldn't look at it and be like, oh, yep, there. Sometimes you'd say, oh, there's a lunge, there's a squat, there's a hinge, but it's not quite as, I don't know, like prescriptive as that. It's a combination of things, right? And you have to infuse other things that allow you to do those things. So for example, hinging, like if a squat and a hinge, there is a hinge in a squat, right? Even though you can also hinge without a squat. So that's a combined movement. When you hinge, like a hinge would be like, I'm going to pick up something on the ground. I have to, hinge at the hips. I'm bending down, and that puts your spine in a vulnerable position. So when you are going to hinge and pick up, a 10-pound bag of dog food or a heavy package off the front porch, you don't just need the ability to hinge at the hips, you need the core strength to support your spine in the hinge, right? So we do all that stuff. I always joke that I teach a couple different types of classes, and the one class that's kind of full body, and everything's technically full body in some way, full body, not a lot of weight, more body weight, more mobility and strength. It's all the stuff that you don't really want to do or think you have to do. It's more like you were saying, just the preventative stuff. And again, you don't get a lot of credit for things that don't happen. You get credit. There's no scoreboard for prevention, right? Because you avoid something that you didn't even, you didn't know it was going to happen.
You don't know you're going to have it. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of our stuff is just, it's the kind of sneaky, invisible stuff that your body thrives because you do it. And you probably wouldn't do it on your own because it's not that sexy. It's not the cool stuff that you see on Instagram where these people are doing these cool workouts. You're like, oh, I want to try that. It's not. It's the stuff you would do in physical therapy if you didn't do it ahead of time and you got injured. I don't know if you've ever been to physical therapy, but it's not sexy. I've been to physical therapy for several injuries, and it's just kind of, oh, do 10 of these and 10 of that. And it's necessary, but it's not glamorous. And so that's how my workouts are. But it is, I mean, it makes this fitness business, and it's one of the reasons I've transitioned kind of beyond it into my work with Baszucki Group. It just makes it really, it's like you're swimming upstream all the time, because fitness is flashy and it rewards the fads. And at the end of the day, your body does not reward the flashy, quick stuff. I think it really wants just like sustainable strength and TLC. I tell people, like, you have one body. It's like having one car. If you knew you're going to have one car for your entire life, how would you treat it? Would you, drive it full speed into a brick wall, which was pretty much what I was doing when I was running and not taking care of my body and not fueling? Or would you take your car to the car wash and wax it and, I don't know, like all the things maintain it, get the oil changed, and you would take better care of it if you knew that you couldn't replace it. And it's just ironic because people replace their cars all the time, and you can't do that with your body. It's not, but we treat it like we can.
Yeah, we live in this throwaway society, and we apply that to our actual bodies, and it doesn't make any sense. You only get the one.
Yeah.
So are you still teaching? Is the Alkalign still there? And you said 2020 kind of knocked it down, but was it able to build back up again and continue?
We had brick and mortar. That was our original business model, was brick and mortar. So I had 2 of my own studios in the Bay Area. We had one, I was starting to franchise. So we had a franchise in Michigan, one in SoCal. We were building one in Atlanta, and then COVID shut it down. And I tried to reopen the Bay Area ones, and just long story, inflexible landlords and other things. We had, when COVID hit, we had pivoted within 24 hours. We had pivoted to a digital platform. So we do still have the digital platform. And for someone like me, it's very odd, because I was the individual runner, never wanted to work out with anyone. And then I spent almost 20 years in a studio 7 days a week, only exercising with other people. And now I'm back to just working out at home by myself, but online with other people. I take these classes, but I have an amazing team, and I really don't have time to teach anymore. I do sometimes. We had a holiday last week, and so I taught a class because I had the day off of work, but I'll sometimes teach, at 6 a.m. or something before work, but I really don't have time anymore. So I've turned it over to my team, but we're still going. It's small but mighty. We have some people don't want to work out at home anymore, so they've gone back to gyms, but we do have a very kind of loyal crowd that recognize that, I think there's less time commitment in exercising at home. It's just easier. All the things all the barriers that used to be there, like if the class isn't at the right time, or there's too much traffic to get there, or I got stuck in a work call, or all those things, right? That those barriers have been removed. But for some people, it's hard to exercise at home. That's why we have live classes where it's kind of like this, where I can see you and you can see me, but there's not everybody can see the participants. Only the instructor can see the participants, and so we can give you feedback on form, or if you need modifications, or it's live. It's also recorded. So yeah, it's a smaller platform, but I love it. Now I can't imagine spending all that time going someplace to exercise anymore. And that's how I'm able to exercise, 5 days a week and work full time and raise 2 kids, just because it's very efficient. So yeah, it's going, but slowly. I think what keeps it going, just in small, is that it is what we teach, and the way we teach and the approach we take is very unique. I don't think people can find that elsewhere. So if they really appreciate the time we put into the programming and the exercise selection and the cues and the whys, why are you doing this? Why does it matter? I think that's what keeps people coming back.
Well, I actually think it's great that it's an online course because you can reach a lot more people, but that it's live and you can get actual feedbacks. I was doing like yoga video type things, and I have no idea if what I'm doing is correct. And then I went to a class with a friend, and the instructor was like adjusting and telling me, "Oh, you need to move this here and that," and I was like, oh, well, this was a completely different experience. So having somebody who can look at you and be able to correct things in real time is really important, very beneficial. So how can people find that?
AlkalignStudios.com. We are ALKALIGN, which is the way we spell alkaline, because it has a little infusion of alignment in there. But yeah, AlkalignStudios.com. We have an app and a membership, and we have 3 build class. I still do all the programming and all the, planning, and I write all the newsletters and that stuff, but I can do that at night, when I'm
Not
at
as
home
heavy
watching.
a lift as teaching a live class for sure.
And not as heavy a lift as operating multiple studios and having a staff of 65 and, showing up there all the time. It's a fraction of what it was, but I love it so much. Like, I just don't want to give it up. It's like my passion, and I love this community. We call it blue is my favorite color. Our studios were blue because we had like this water wall because of alkaline and pH and balance. And I just like the way water flows, it ebbs, it flows, it goes in, it goes out. That is life, right? So we call ourselves the Blue Crew. And I just love my Blue Crew. They're an extension of my family. And so, whenever I can pop by, earlier this week, I taught a 6:15 a.m. class. And last week, teaching at 9 a.m., which I never do, was just so nice to see people I haven't seen in a while. So, yeah, I definitely miss it, but I also am very passionate about what I'm doing in my role now.
Before we move completely into what you're doing now, the question that popped into my head was like, who would benefit the most from seeking out Alkalign?
I think the one thing our alkaline clients all have in common is an appreciation for their bodies. So in general, and this isn't always true, but in general, it tends to be people who have been through something before and have a little bit of life under their belt. So I would say we skew a little bit like maybe late. I would say now probably post 40, but not necessarily. We definitely have people who are in their 20s and 30s, but people who have an appreciation for like, this is when I was in my 20s, I thought I was invincible. I was like, I don't need to think about, I definitely did not think about long-term anything. I was just in the here and now, living my best life. Now, once you've been through an injury or childbirth or anything, I mean, name it, you start to like, maybe I should start taking care of this one body I have. And so I think the people that are really drawn to alkaline are people who they're at that phase of their life, like, oof, I really need to start listening to my body. And also people who maybe have not had great experiences exercising elsewhere. And I think I've run into a lot of people over the years who have had some experience, again, whether it's like that PE teacher from junior high that kind of made that sideways comment, or maybe a former coach or parent or somebody who just said something that it just clicked. Like, I don't know, they just have a different relationship with exercise as a result. I think those people really find a home at Alkalign as well, because they realize like, oh, this is actually fun and I feel good about myself and I don't feel like I need to be scraped up off the floor. It's not to say that folks who have that it has to hurt to work or more is more mentality can't embrace Alkalign, because I certainly did. I had a huge transformation. I was that cardio queen. I was the more is more person, and I completely did the 180, and I have, I feel much better as a result. But yeah, if you're looking to, or maybe hearing things like, oh, I know I should be like lifting weights, that sounds scary, or I don't know where to start, or I'm afraid of getting hurt, or I'm afraid I'm going to bulk up. You know, if you have that little voice that's telling you like, I don't know, you know, kind of helping you come up with excuses to avoid it, I would say definitely try Alkalign. But technically it's for everybody, all ages, all different abilities, because it builds on itself. You know, we teach you the basics, and yeah, anybody can do it at any level. You just have to have the growth mindset to try something new. That's the scariest part. It's just trying something new.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I understand that completely. So at all levels, does that mean then like is it some of it's like body weight kind of stuff and then you can move up into it's all levels, all ranges, and maybe doesn't feel gym like. That's kind of how I'm
Yeah,
reading it. Like
it doesn't have like a frenetic feel, because I think, and again, this is where I'm kind of swimming upstream, because I think people leave like a boot camp class where they're all sweaty, the music's going, and they think, oh, that was such a good class. But we live in a very stressful world, and I feel like our body is in fight or flight at some level throughout most of the day. And so I feel like when you go to exercise, it shouldn't make you feel stressed. It shouldn't make you feel exhausted, right? You should be going there. It's like you're going to, you know, plug in to recharge your batteries, not to drain them. So I think, again, the belief system, again, this is where we're like, the fitness belief system is just like, I'm just trying to disrupt all those beliefs that you should come out and you want to feel like, oh, I feel stronger. I feel good. Yeah, I worked hard in that class, but you don't want to feel like, ugh, like I can't move for the next 3 days. Right. So it's a very gradual. I encourage people to listen to their bodies. I encourage them to modify. I encourage, like when we start people in the weightlifting class, I usually say for the first week or two, just do a body weight, get the mechanics of the exercise down first, and don't rush to go pick up the heaviest weight you can, because we all know what happens. You you pick up the heaviest weight, you get injured, then that little, you know, it's that little thing in your head that's like, ooh, that I got injured, that's scary. And then you're resistant to try it again. So it's all about slow and steady. My philosophy is gentle consistency for the win, just slow and steady. And you know what, if you fall off, you know, that happens, life happens, just get back on. I've had people say to me lately, like, oh, I would love to take your class again, I'm just not in good enough shape. I'm like, well, there's only one way to get there, and that's to just show up and do what you can at the pace you can, and just be patient with yourself. I think our biggest obstacle is ourself and our own inner critic. I think that's what stands in people's way.
Yeah, for more than just fitness. It's all It's all the time. It's an uphill battle. Look, if you think you're fighting an uphill battle, guess what? So is the person next to you, and the next to you, and next to you. We're all fighting. That'll go back to we all have something we have to work for. If we were all perfect, we wouldn't really have any reason to be doing anything anymore. So I love how you approach this. It sounds really fascinating. I feel like a lot of people could benefit from it. So, you know, you might think you're a small group, but this concept, I think brick and mortar is less likely to be used now anyway, because you get into that like competition in your head. I think it's kind of convenient that you still have the classes, you have the people that can teach to you and adjust and all of that, but also you don't see the other people. So you're not like, it's kind of combining that I'm running and I'm by myself and I'm doing the thing, but also having that immediate feedback. It sounds amazing.
Yeah. I'll have to invite you to a class soon.
So let's do this big jump and transition. When I did the introduction, I said I'm joined by the chief of staff to the president, which is pretty important, especially in my world, because you are the chief of staff to the president of the Baszucki Group, which has played a huge role in my life. So can you tell me how you ended up there and what you do in your more immediate full-time job than gym life?
So after the studios closed, I was really trying to I knew I wanted to do something else. You know, I just don't believe that you pick one career and stick with it. I think we're all kind of always a work in progress. And so I have a lot of like transferable skills. And so I did this very scary thing and I updated my LinkedIn. I hadn't updated my resume since 2008. So it's like, I'm just going to update my LinkedIn and see what happens. And my 3 favorite things to talk about are metabolic health, hormone health, and joint health. So I know I'm really fun at a cocktail party. People are like, yeah, no, I don't even want to talk about. Actually, some of those topics are now becoming hot, or maybe it's just the people I'm hanging out with or have changed. But I listed those. You're supposed to put like your key skills or whatever in your LinkedIn. And so I put metabolic health was on my top of my, things I'm interested in. And I got a call from a recruiter about a job at Baszucki Group. And so they said, this is really random, but I have this job and I'm wondering if you'd be interested in it. And I was like, actually, this sounds perfect for me. So it was, I don't know. I mean, call it fate or good algorithm or something. I don't know. I got connected with Jan Baszucki and we hit it off. And I don't know, I was starting there a couple months later. It went, really quickly, and I've been there over a year now. And so I think because of my background in finance and project management and product development and being an entrepreneur where you wear every single hat, and usually all of them at the same time, I just feel like this chief of staff role is a good fit for me because I can sort of pick up on things quickly and I can have my hands. I'm really good at multitasking and having my hands on lots of things and tracking things. And I'm also very organized. So I just am good at making sure things don't slip through the cracks, which I think is probably the most valuable for Jan.
Yeah. Leaning into that type A that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Using it to the advantage of the organization.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I didn't realize that you had only been there for what you said, a year and a half. I thought you'd been there pretty much since the inception. I thought you were one of the first ones. You just
I feel like I've been
right
there.
In.
Yeah. It feels like home. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's a great group, and it's been amazing being able, with the cholesterol code screenings, be able to meet so many people within the Baszucki Group and Metabolic Mind and all of those places, like the teams that have been assembled to move this message forward has been absolutely amazing. Of course, I'm sure Jan's just like she hand selects and she knows what she wants. And in conversations with her, I was like, she's so absolutely passionate. It must be incredibly challenging, but yet also very fulfilling at the same time to work with that, with that kind of passion every single day. So
yeah, it's something I relate to. And I don't know. I know a lot of people go to jobs every day that they're not passionate about. And I admire that they go and they, work to live and they are able to do their job and be excited about it, even if it's, not aligned with their personal. I'm not that person. I don't know why. I mean, I obviously worked in a couple jobs and things where I wasn't super aligned, and then I made a change. But now, having owned my own business for so long and being so aligned with the mission, I just can't imagine going backwards. And so, I really love that. Not only do I like the work and the skill set stuff, but it's all working towards, this common good to get these, messages and this research and to break the mold. We're also, much like Alkalign, swimming upstream in this industry, right? Trying to establish a new field of medicine and science, and it's challenging. So it's like it has a lot of similarities to Alkalign and also a lot of the same challenges, and that's what I like about it. Every day is different. Yeah,
you're having to break down a lot of paradigms that have existed for quite a long time. And from my position, for seeing it my side, it's like everybody was, it was like these little whispers of metabolic mental health and just back. And then all of a sudden, the Baszucki Group comes in, and it's all like, it's just grown so much since that's existed, since they've created Metabolic Mind, and they've been able to give out all these grants and fund all this research. It's like, it's just, to me, it's just been this explosion, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's very exciting. And while it is still this upstream swim, I feel like it's every day something is accomplished. Someone gets changed. Somebody hears the message, and it's going to all of the right people at all the right times. There's a little bit of patience involved, but a whole bunch of work.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we're reaching a tipping point, which is nice. And then once you reach the tipping point, you get a little momentum, a little wind at your back. So yeah, but that's a testament of just Jan's a grinder, right? She's just not going to take no for an answer, and she's going to put her head down and, work until she accomplishes her, which I don't think she'll ever be like, okay, that's it, I'm good.
I finished. All done. Let's wipe the hands and move on. Yeah.
We've got 4,000 RCTs and clinical trial. I'm good. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, but I think she's really, pushing it forward, and sometimes it feels like it's not happening fast enough, but when you look in the rear view mirror, you're like, wow, we've come a long way. So
yeah,
I think that's
absolutely cool. Yeah, she's definitely a force of nature. I've told her that a couple of times. She's a force of nature, and just so thankful that she's kind of embraced all of us. It's not, obviously it was her journey with Matt that's kind of got that ball rolling, but it was like, no, I can't it's not about just Matt. It's about everybody. Like, everybody needs to know. And it's just so to be a part of it, and to just have a little tiny piece of it is huge for me. But for you, I'm sure it's just amazing every day you get to see that in action.
Yeah. And I loved you talked about the screening. It's like being able to go out and meet people face to face is so nice, because I feel like I know people from their Think Smart profiles. I've watched every Think Smart profile, and then it's like, oh, I get to meet these people in real life, which is really, really cool. For me, I mean, I come from a lot of things, and I've done a lot, and I don't come from a science background. So I think the science is very, very important, and that is the evidence we need to move this field forward. But for me, it's all about the human. That's what's most familiar to me, because that's where, when I owned a studio, I was with real people every single day. And that was the difference between my corporate job, working in literally a windowless office, multiple hours a day, working on these programs, which are going to be disseminated to some healthcare plan and some county and some, like some faraway land, which who knows if any. I just felt so disconnected from I was like in the right category. I was like, oh, yep, mental health, physical health, like these comorbidity. I was like it was the right idea, but the wrong, and then I owned studios, and I got to see real people and see how this affected their life every single day. And I feel like this is like an extension of that, this, getting to really see how our work impacts people is very rewarding.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it was very weird being a person that was walking around and having other people say, hey, I know you from your Think Smart
I
profile.
know, it's so very cool.
It's all been really cool. And I agree with you. I think the stories are what really makes the difference. The science is absolutely important. There needs to be the backing, but the stories is really, that's where that connection is made. Even the most scientific person has personal experience with someone, and to hear that out of another person's mouth, like, oh, I know somebody who was just like that. That really makes a difference in both that scientific and that grassroots storytelling is just so important.
Yeah, we run into people every day who are like, again, it doesn't matter if they're a PhD, MD scientist, or everybody knows somebody who has had a challenge along these lines. So it is very relatable. It's also something I think not a lot of people talk about openly. So I think this is also like it's giving people permission and a space and a context to really start talking about it, which I think is important.
Oh yeah, the stigma behind any mental illness has been probably the hardest hurdle to cross.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So, well, I think well, we've talked about a whole bunch. I was going to ask you about your kiddos because I figured you probably heard it's when you're talking about fitness and the way people talk about it, and you have to sweat and it has to hurt and all that stuff. And I was going to ask you if you've ever heard, especially like if they're like in school sports or something like that, like, do they come home and say that kind of stuff to you and you're like, oh, no, 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 no. Or are they also out there preaching your message to their age group?
I would say they're probably somewhere in between. I do think I've planted some seeds. They are the whole inspiration behind my pivot from like more of like a traditional fitness path to what became Alkalign, because I was part of pre-Alkalign. I was part of a franchise that was it was pretty dysfunctional. It was very much like how you look. It was very, what's the word I'm looking, very superficial. And I was 30 years old with no kids when I started that. And then shortly thereafter ended up with 2 kids and 2 girls nonetheless. And I thought, I just cannot raise them in this type of like fitness environment with this type of mindset. And I can't subscribe to this. Like, I need to set an example. I mean, who do your kids see the most? You know, you are the person they see the most in their early years. And so they grew up in the studios. I had childcare on staff. They've, it's just whether they remember ever watching me teach a class is they probably don't, but I know it's there, like deep ingrained in their memory. And so they are definitely at the point where they don't want to listen to anything I have to say. But at the same time, my daughter will go to the gym sometimes and she'll come back and be like, Mom, I saw someone doing this thing that just looks so dangerous and stupid, like you would have just, she knows enough, I think, to know, she knows, she's been inspired enough to know, like from the fitness, the way things look, or she will send me things on Instagram like, oh, this is going to make your eyes burn. Like, you're not going to believe what this person is doing. It's so dumb. But I don't know. My hope for them is that, that they just learn how to care for themselves. Like, one, I just want to be an example for them of it's not, it's not selfish to put yourself on the front burner. I think moms in particular are expected to just, and I do too. I mean, I sacrifice a lot for them, and I do, stay up much later at night than I, should for my own health to do things for them. But I also feel like it's okay for me to go, in the garage and work out for a while and ask for, 45 minutes uninterrupted to myself. I think that's okay. And so I'm hoping that what they take from that is like the appreciation of self-care. They're very good at fueling their bodies. I can hear my daughter up making breakfast. She's a camp counselor, and yesterday she made herself an omelet with like onions and peppers and bacon, and she's 16 getting up and like cooking for herself. I'm like, that's right. Like, don't just shovel in the pastry or something on your way out. Like, it's okay to take time, make yourself some breakfast. So they haven't fully they're not like the Alkalign Blue Crew. They're not showing up for classes yet. I think someday they probably will. They have their own interests. They're very my one daughter's a dancer and one plays soccer and volleyball. But I hope that if someone, a coach or actually one of my kids did have a coach 2 years ago at the age of 9, went around and poked all their stomachs and told them they needed to do more sit-ups. Whoa. And she did recognize that as not okay. That is not something that mom would approve of. So like the body shaming, they know my stance on that. And I think, whether they're conscious of it now, I do think it will impact, hopefully, the way they take care of themselves and take care of other people, as well.
Yeah, I love that. Just the it's okay to take time for yourself piece. That's huge. But all the other stuff, they're gonna go toe to toe with a PE teacher one of these days.
Yeah, I do. My biggest thing that really grinds on me are the sit-ups. I hate sit-ups. The like yanking on your head and the momentum and just the like you have to do as many sit-ups as you can. I don't know. That probably comes from, I don't know where that comes from, some presidential fitness challenge or something. I'm like, it's so bad. And I take a mom's hip hop class, and which I love, but the instructor, who's like really young and probably has never had an injury, is always teaching those sit-ups, and I just refuse to do them. So I tell my kids, if someone tries to make you do sit-ups, you just do something else. You can do a plank, you can hold something, just do not yank at your head, and it's gonna wreak havoc, But yeah, lots of other ways to strengthen your core without doing PE class.
You just ended this with the best news ever. There's lots of other ways to strengthen your core than sit-ups. That's everybody is now taking a big sigh of relief.
You never have to do another sit-up. Yeah.
I love it. That's wonderful. Well, Erin, it has been such a blessing to have you on the show with me today. I've enjoyed the conversation very much. And really, everything that you did as far as like this functional fitness stuff was like amazing. And I wish that was like broader. So hopefully this helps get that message out there, and that this is like, it's online, like people can go and go join those classes. But then also thank you for everything that you're doing with the Baszucki Group. And, I've been the beneficiary of some love from them and from Metabolic Mind. And it means a lot. So thank you for making that shift and taking that leap of faith and writing metabolic health as your number one thing on your LinkedIn that one day and making it all happen. It's very much appreciated. I know I speak for all of us who benefit from what the Baszucki Group is doing.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. This has been really fun. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you better.
Yes, I know. What a lovely thing to end up at Menlo Park at a film screening one day.
I know, right?
all dolled up beyond recognition, but somehow it still worked. I know it was such a blast. I've had I told the film crew when they left, I was like, I told them I was gonna miss them, and they said I wasn't. And then being able to see everybody again at all the different events, like now I miss you guys even more. So
I know
the whole thing's just been really fun. So anyway, thank you again. I'm Robyn Dobbins, and on behalf of Erin Paruszewski, thanks for hearing our Ketobiography. Bye.